So here we are, 4 years ago, were the events of January 6, 2021, the darkest day in all of the Republic. Well, what we thought was true is quickly unraveling now. For many Americans, this day is a dividing line. The narratives have clashed. Emotions have run high. Our trust in institutions sworn to protect us has been further eroded in ways that only dramatic action will we ever be able to regain a portion of our trust. Now, there are newly emerging details. They're not just revelations. They are bombshells that force us to confront an uncomfortable truth about our government. And that should be the message of January 6th. And that message, the truth about our government, its accountability, and the lengths that it will go to preserve its version of a story, even when it is all a lie. Beginning on January 6th in the afternoon, Americans were told of an imminent threat. 2 pipe bombs were found near the RNC and the DNC headquarters. These devices, if you remember, we were told, could have caused catastrophic harm. After all, at the DNC, the vice president had been rushed to the DNC strangely and without explanation. And also strangely, all records were lost. The Secret Service accidentally deleted all of those records on why she was moved to the DNC. Now we know the investigation into these bombs was woefully insufficient, and I'm being kind with that. I don't think it really even happened at all. Surveillance footage was ignored. Cameras were turned just hours before the pipe bomb was laid. Cell phone data in both places, we were told, was corrupted. The only thing that was corrupted was our own government and FBI. We now know that the data was not corrupted. According to the cell phone companies, they were never asked to turn over the information to the FBI. They were never asked. Critical leads went unpursued. Today, 4 years later, questions about the bomber's identity still remain unanswered. The lack of urgency begs the question, why? Why would federal agencies neglect a critical investigation in something that was going to destroy the republic, could have killed the vice president? What if the pipe bombs were nothing more than a convenient distraction? Boy, a justification to escalate security measures and cast a broader shadow over what they hoped would unfold that day. It's not conspiratorial to ask those questions. It is our duty as citizens, because we now know our government lied. So we want answers. We know that 26 FBI informants were on the ground that day, but they didn't go into the Capitol. Now let that sink in. It's not speculation. It's fact. 26 FBI informants. What were they doing there? Were they infiltrating the crowd? Were they guiding its behavior? Were they acting as provocateurs? Why, if the FBI had 26 informants, why did this happen at all? The presence raises troubling concerns about how much of January 6th was actually organic and how much was orchestrated. 4 years ago today, I was tweeting, "This has got to stop. This isn't who we are. All of these people should go to jail." Well, today, I still say, if you broke the windows and you were clad in a mask and you were causing damage and, hurting people, yeah, you should go to jail. But the time you should have served is, up by now. But there's still people in jail, maybe for as long as 20 years. It looks like this was all crafted not to protect democracy, but to bolster an agenda. Amid the chaos, everybody pointing their finger to one man, Donald J. Trump. But the new information paints a vastly different picture. 2 days before January 6th, it has now been verified that Trump authorized the deployment of the National Guard, citing concerns over potential unrest at the Capitol on January 6th. But his concerns were ignored. His offer was rebuffed by Nancy Pelosi and the Capitol Police. Why? Who in the chain of command chose to disregard this presidential directive? The presence of the National Guard would have prevented much of the mayhem that occurred, maybe even all of it. Yet that opportunity was squandered, and no one told us about it. In fact, the media told us that Trump wanted the chaos. The truth is, we now know, he sought to prevent it. This glaring omission from mainstream narratives exposes just how much the January 6th story has been manipulated to fit a preconceived conclusion. Then there was the Ashley Babbitt story, a name who's become a rallying cry for those who see January 6th as a miscarriage of justice. She was a decorated Air Force veteran. She was shot and killed on live TV by a Capitol Police officer while attempting to climb through a broken window. Her death was ruled justified almost immediately. But now we learn that the officer involved violated multiple procedural rules. The officer, long shielded from scrutiny, held up as a hero, is now under investigation for misconduct so severe that it could lead to criminal charges. Think about that. A life was taken. The person responsible may not have followed any of the protocols. What else was cut because of security? What else was held up as an example of good police work? And why was Babbitt's death so quickly dismissed by the media and the government officials? In the days of George Floyd, why was this one policeman, his actions not scrutinized? Did her life not matter? Her story was buried under a mountain of political narratives. And most importantly, January 6th is all about the perversion of justice, the using of allies in social media, high-tech, global corporations, including telecom and airlines, in many cases offering up location data on people that were simply in Washington, D.C. without being asked. What the FBI did with it, how perverted the court system is in D.C. alone, the knowing role of our politicians, local and federal, our police, the higher-ups with the National Guard, as well as at the Pentagon now. What do these things tell us about our country? Well, they tell us that our country, as we hope it would be, is dead, that we have been lied to. They mean that the events of January 6th are far more complex than the tidy little story that they had by 6 p.m. that night. They mean that the very institutions designed to uphold justice and democracy may have played a role in undermining them. And let's not just blame one side. January 6th wasn't about Trump supporters or Democrats in the media. It was about a system that thrives on division and chaos, a system that uses fear to control us. If federal agencies can lie, manipulate, and withhold the truth about January 6th, what are they not capable of doing? What are they willing to do to maintain their grip on power? We, the American people, 4 years later on January 6th, must demand the truth. We don't just deserve it, we demand it. Not the sanitized version, not the politically convenient version, not the story that makes the Democrats look bad alone, but tells us the truth, the entire truth. That means demanding accountability from the FBI, the Capitol Police, every government official on either side who had a hand in what happened that day or covering it up. It means refusing to let the deaths, the lies, the unanswered questions fade into a history of political footnotes. It seems that January 6th, now 4 years later, we can say was not the end of democracy, but it may have been the beginning of the end for our blind trust in all of our institutions that we now know have failed us time and time again. The truth will set you free. We were preserved, I believe. God's not done with us. That was a miracle that Donald Trump was elected. That was a miracle that he lived to see the election. God did what we could not do. Now he is demanding that we do our part. And that is to ensure lies and corruption are not buried, but that we demand equal justice. I don't care who you are, where you work, what label you have, what party you belong to. This must end.